Main bass is going to be a lot of fun. Therefore, we're going to start off with Serum as well. So I'm going to load up Serum into this main bass MIDI track over here and load up the following presets. So I'm going to go into the presets from this core specifically and load up this preset called Bass Noise 2. And this is how it sounds on its own. Let me make sure that it's on. Nice and short. Very subby, everything that we need for the main bass sound. It might look complicated, but it really isn't that hard. All right, I'm going to give you a quick rundown of what's going on in this sound specifically. Starting from the left here, we see that the sub oscillator is turned off. We do have envelope 1 mapped to the sub oscillator, so you could re-enable that. I felt like I didn't need sub because I already had enough of that here. Very subby sound on its own. And we also have a noise oscillator here, which is XF Kick 2. So it must be one of these kick attack samples here. Yeah, Kick 2 under the attacks panel, attacks kick. This is usually great if you want to add some type of transient to your sound. And you could also enable this little one shot here. So it only plays during the beginning of the sound. But it's honestly not doing a lot in here because the noise oscillator is also feeding into this filter here, which in hand is filtering out the noise. So if we would disable the N here, the noise oscillator, we could probably hear the kick here. You see? Crazy. But yeah, just decided to keep that in, feed it into the noise oscillator here. And for oscillator A, we have some kind of a morphed sine wave, WA sine. And for oscillator B, we have the same, also a morphed sine wave. And it almost looks like a sawtooth wave, so there must be a lot of harmonics going on. We have oscillator A pitched down 1 octave and oscillator B pitched down 2 octaves. You can also see that there's a bit of bending going on here and a bit of bending going on here. So the warp mode is set to bend plus, which in turn allows us to get more harmonics out of the sound. On oscillator A, we have the unison set to 2, a bit of detuning going on, and the oscillator B has a unison set to 1. Other than that, not a lot going on, just a really sharp little cutoff filter here, because without that, sounds kind of harsh. So we want to make sure we enable that. And we have the envelope 2, which is the main pluck sound, determining the cutoff amount from the filter here. You can see it's very short. Very short and plucky. That's what we want with this bass here. LFO 1 also seems to be mapped to the cutoff. This is just for the sake of movement. Every 4 bars, there's a bit of a rise to the filter cutoff amount. Let's keep playing it. And now there's a bit of a slope. This is something for those really in-depth detail types of people. Not necessarily necessary, but if we were to exaggerate that, through, which is kind of cool. Already have a bit more movement within this sound, but now let's dial that back down. So there's just a bit of inherent automation, inherent movement going on within the sound. Some processing, tube distortion set to 50%, drive set to 37%, hyperdimension for some widening, a bit of reverb here for some room, and an EQ to roll off some of those very low frequencies at, it seems to me, about 30 hertz. Then we get this sound. Awesome. So now let's draw in the MIDI. This is where the fun part begins. So now we're going to select a 4-bar section here and loop it. So hit Control L, now Control Shift M to create a MIDI clip. And our root note is A sharp, right? So let's draw in 3 notes here. A bit too high. Pitch it down an octave. So let's play that together with the rest of our track. Whoops, a bit loud. Slightly reduce it here. We also want to make sure that the bass is mono. So on the utility panel, we're going to activate that here. Keep it at 120 hertz. Perfect. And now we just need to reduce the volume significantly. Let's work with less volume first and see if we can change the velocity here. No difference. Okay, no problem. Let's keep it like that. So we're going to have this kick, bass, 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 kick, bass, bass, bass. Increase the volume. And the last note here is going to be pitched up in octave. So shift arrow up. Take this section and duplicate that here. This is how it sounds. Awesome. All right, let's play it again. Take out the low sub. Cool. Now I'm just gonna duplicate the bass until the end here. Loop this 8-bar section that we got going. 16 bars. Give it another playthrough and slightly mix in the bass. We're gonna do some mixing afterwards, but right now I just want to get that level approximately right. Cool. I'm happy with that. All right, so underneath the main bass layer, we have the bass variation patch. Therefore, we are going to load up Serum again. And this bass variation patch is quite essential if we want to get that Anima and Alea typical stab sound right. So we are, again, going to load up a specific preset for this from the courses pack, and this is going to be called Bass Variation. This is also from the Melodic Techno Volume 2 pack. Sounds kind of cool on its own, I would say. Reduce the volume here. So this is going to be the sound that'll be introduced during the second drop phase. And we're just going to create a MIDI clip here for, gonna do it like this. Cool. And I'm going to take out a bit of those low frequencies, just like that. We only want the highs. The main bass, the sub, is already here. So this is just like an assistive layer. Crank it up a bit so we can hear it now. I'm just going to draw a few MIDI notes in here as well. Maybe on 8th note here. Yep. Nope. So we want like a da-da-rum, bum, bum. Just like that. Is that it? Dude, I'm confused. Okay, so da-da-dum-dum-dum. Okay, let's give it a playthrough here. No, maybe like this. Not getting it right. So we have that 8-bar section here. Zoom in a bit more here. Place it here and place it here. There we go. I'm going to duplicate the section over here and now create a bit of a rhythmic variation in the second part here. Dum da dum dum dum. Is that right? Yeah. So, delete these guys here. There we go. Yeah, I'm happy with this sound. Okay, so now we have our main sound here. We're going to take this section over and duplicate it here. And this is how it sounds in total. Cool. Now what I'd like to do is, for the sound, we're also going to make, just in case, we're going to also enable bass mono here, and we are going to add an overdrive for some distortion. Set the drive and the tone to 50%. We're also going to leave the dynamics at 50%, maybe just dial down the frequency spectrum here, and reduce the dry wet to, let's say, 20%. Awesome. Just so you know what exactly this layer is doing, the bass variation layer is actually just a sub-layer pitched down 2 octaves. Oscillator A and oscillator B seem to be kind of a square wave variation. We have this German low-pass filter here, and envelope 2 being our main envelope being applied to the cutoff here. So we have a very short and plucky sound. If I were to disable the cutoff, it would sound like this. This gives it that shortness. We have a bit of noise going on as well. Some AC hum 1. So this should be somewhere, I think, in the analog folder. If not, then it's somewhere else. Yeah, it's under Organics AC hum 1. So a bit of a noise sample going into the filter as well. We have some automation of the wavetable position. So LFO4 is just adding a bit more movement. That's what actually is causing it to sound different each hit. So this is also why the preset is called bass variation. See, it's morphing around. So there's some inherent movement in the sound already. And then it restarts. Amazing. In the effects panel, we have some reverb, filter, some additional filtering going on in here. And we have some delay, it seems, 8th dotted note delay. Then we have some downsampling distortion. So we put that on post, activated the high pass, so only the high frequencies are being applied. And then just crank up that mix slightly. And if we disable that, it sounds like this. This adds that bit crush, that bit of crunch in the high end layer. And with the EQ, we also boosted those highs a bit more, just to emphasize them slightly. And that's how we got this patch. Now we're going to move on to the next layer, which basically is just a layer variation for the bass variation layer here. So we're going to take the MIDI files and just post them down here, copy them here. And this sound is going to be that trademark Anima, and Inalea stab. So let's again load up Serum, put that down here, and load up the bass preset. So chorus presets are in here. This is ARP1X. So it originally was intended to be an ARP, but I used it for the bass. And this is also inside the Melodic Techno Serum Volume 1 pack. This is how it sounds on its own. If we just reduce the volume and play that together with the other bass, it sounds like this. Not exactly the sound we want yet, so we're going to have to do a bit of tweaking here. And I do have this pitch MIDI effect loaded up in this layer here, which is very practical, so I don't have to double click and change the pitch here each time. You can also find this in the MIDI effects panel, pitch. There you go. Since I already have it loaded up, I'm going to keep it here. Shift arrow down twice, so it plays 2 octaves down. This is how it sounds now. Still not entirely what we're looking for. Let's actually crank up the volume on this layer a bit more, and on the other layer, let's make that a bit quiet just for now. Gonna add a bit of low cut here, some bass mono, and a reverb to make it a bit more interesting for now. Add a low cut to the reverb. So we're going to have to make some tweakings to the parameter of Serum itself so the sound punches through a bit more. And as you can see here, so oscillator A is basic shapes. It's a square wave, and oscillator B seems to be some kind of saw wave morph variation. We have the unison here set to 9, so the sound sounds a bit wider. Also MG low cutoff filter here for some extra bounciness within the sound. Oh, that sounds cool. There seems to be some kind of attack, or what I'd like to consider a sweep in. We can see that here. So it takes 56 milliseconds to reach its peak, and we see that envelope 2 is also being applied to the cutoff filter. This is why it sounds like wob 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 wob. And if we reduce the attack, much better. So we want a shorter attack on the cutoff filter. Let's set that very short, like 0.5. Leave a bit of space. It tends to click around 0 milliseconds, so I leave a bit of space here. 0.5 is cool. And also reduce the decay to make it a bit shorter here. We're determining the cutoff filter amount still. Increase the sustain perhaps a bit. Okay, not doing too much. Oh, Jesus. No. Oh god, oh god, oh god. Now let's increase the decay a bit here. Yeah, this is okay. And this sound also seems to have some type of noise oscillator moving into the cutoff. Oh, it sounds so flat without the noise. The noise just adds so much analog texture to it. But that just goes into the filter as well. In the effects panel, we are actually going to enable the tube distortion because we do want to have a bit more grit to the sound. Just leave it at 100%. Not doing a lot, just some soft saturation. Bit of low cut for the EQ. Delay, we're going to leave it on 8th note, and the right side with a bit of delay here, as you can see. So you can manually readjust the timing, which is kind of cool to have an offset delay. Sounds a bit less regular. And a bit of reverb at the end going on as well. Just going to open up the cutoff here to around 160 Hertz. We have that really open sound, and our bass together sounds like this. I do feel like we could add a bit more decay to the reverb here and some dry wet to the second sound. Crank it up a bit more. Awesome, already sounds very driving. And in order to glue the basses together, we're going to add a glue compressor to the bus channel. So on the group, you can see there's a glue compressor already loaded up, and just going to reduce the threshold here for now. So we reduced the dynamic range. This is also very practical if you have a lot of layers playing at the same time. Glue compressor just literally glues those together, which is a really cool audio effect. Okay, let's move on to the next lesson.